Hoses. The bane of anyone that uses a bilge pump, a water pressure pump, or anything else. I mean, some places I need 6 meters of hose. Other places I need 10 up to 12. But why haul this out each and every time if I only need half of it? The same goes for why have different hoses for my high banker? Why have different hoses for my dredge? Why have different... all of this takes up space. It makes weight and everything else. I like this reinforced hose with the plastic. The dilemma is when you try to screw anything onto it, it goes all wonky on you. I'm going to be replacing this with a larger piece of clear later, but we'll get into that when I get into the next part. So what I did is I took my 12 meters, 2 6-meter sections. Now I found if you wrap a little bit of duct tape around this before you put your band on, it helps. But if you're going to put something in it, put that in there before you do your wrapping, because it's going to cause this to shrink and then you can't get this in. So I use the wide bands. There's the little thin bands, there's wide, and then there's the extra wide. I cannot get the extra wide in this small of a diameter, so I just use the wide bands. So this is my backup hose. This is also my sluice hose. Yes, my sluice hose. We'll get more into that later. This is my high banker hose. My extra high banker hose. All of it right here in this one roll of hose. I've eliminated another 12 to 14 meters of hose by simply doing that. Alright? I always use my preference. I've got some 3,500. My preference is 1,100 GPH pumps. If I keep everything geared to that, I know what my angles are, I know what my mats do, everything, I'm good to go on it. I'm not trying to wash down rocks that are this big, okay? It's just not going to happen. There's no sense in it because there's simply, you're not going to find any gold that big in Germany, Italy, Spain. You might get lucky in Switzerland and find a goose egg nugget, but I've not heard much of it unless you're hard mining. So, another way to do this, if you don't mind doing a little bit of reduction, is put a, say I wanted this here to fit, I could put a smaller piece of clear hose in and then do the same thing. The trouble if you're using hosing inside this reinforced stuff is when you do it, it does not always tighten around perfectly because it has no hard structure. That's why I prefer to use aluminum piping. So I'm out, I'm working, I go, I'm going to need my second roll. All I have to do, I carry a little, this is in my gold unit. It's got about everything that I need there. I pop that out. I know all my stuff is uniformal. 99% of all my screws are M5s, nuts, washers, M5s. All my bolt heads for these rings is M7s. I know what I'm doing, so even if I have to work in low light or dark, I know what I'm dealing with. I've made everything uniformal as much as possible and kept everything to spec. So I need to take and add this. I bring this out. I loosen my hose here. This ring always stays here, attached to here. So I pre-loosen this. I loosen it. I bring it, I make sure I've got twice this so I can put this about halfway, and bam, I tighten it and I've got my hose. When I'm ready to go home and take it apart, I loosen it, I bring this back to here, I don't tighten it, just enough to hold it. This comes apart and I'm ready to roll. Speaking of rolling, what I like to do is, I know this is here. I always start with my off end, my primary end. And I always put a piece of duct tape. This way I know when I start wrapping this, because all my stuff, everything goes in its own little compartment. So I know when I go to start wrapping this, if I bring this and I match that right there, I know at that point this is now going to fit onto the hook and into the slot it's supposed to. Now I know when I end, this is always going to be here. This is going to be back here. These are little zip strips for construction. They've got little nubbies on them. And so I can take these on and off. And pull this up, tighten it, and I'm ready to rock and roll. Okay? So that is how my stuff works. Okay, this is my primary hose. And this runs to, this again will work with my sluice, it will work with my my multi-sluice, it will work with my river stream sluice, it will work with my high banker, all of it. And the reason is, this is one of my high bankers. This came from Gold Brothers. They 3D print these. And like I said, here I'm going to replace that with a piece of clear so I don't have this kinking. But they were out of it. I'm waiting for them to get that. How did I get this big one to here, you ask? Good question. With one of these. I can then cut and size, and this is how I size all of my hoses now. Is I get these and I cut them to the size that I need, and that's how I use them. So case in point, let's say I want to hook this to my pump hose for my high banker. Again, I've got my spare one right here. I loosen it, I slide it on, I tighten it, I'm good to go. We'll discuss this stuff later. Let's say I am working my stream sluice and I can't get to my water source. Again, we'll discuss later. This is my connector for that. I have a little switch here so I can control my water flow. All I do, again, I've got this, I loosen this, I slide it on, boom, tighten it, and I'm ready to go. Okay? Remember, I know it looks wonky for a sluice, but we'll get to this in a minute. Another issue that I had was the Multisluice. Multisluice is made in America. They use American measurements. Sometimes the threading and so on in Germany and Europe is different. It could be the same diameter screw or bolt, but the threading is different. And I kept running into all sorts of problems because my wife, I was doing some work in the yard, and the wife cracked my old hose, and I couldn't, for the life of me, I had trouble trying to find a piece that would fit and work here with their little system. I found that SureFlow, it's a company that makes swimming pool filters and things like that. They do whirlpools. They have tubing in 2 sizes, and I found one size will fit. My dilemma is, where I get this, it only comes in 2 meter to 3 meter sections. Yay. Let's say I am working this and I'm out on the Rhine somewhere and I'm wanting to use this to clean my fines before I haul it all home. Cut down my hauling load because I got to hike to get back to the vehicle. What I did is I took a section, again here, again, It matches right into my hosing. Okay. So now, once again, I can extend this from its 1 meter to 6 meters to 12 meters, even if I need it to clean my fines and I want to stay away from the riverbank. That's the basics on hoses. This is how I gauge my hoses and or adjust them accordingly. This piece right here is in here. That's that piece right there that does that connector. I used to, when I first got to Germany, I was having to take one size, put a smaller piece in and a smaller piece in to try, and it was a real pain in the dupa. And my wife introduced me to these, and I love them. It reduces the weight because I'm not having to double thick hoses to make sizes meet. I've got a whole range that I can work from. It's just, I got these are down in the water, for like rain gutters and stuff. I got these at Obi. So, rehash. When you're wanting to take and put a band onto a spiral hose, wrap yourself some duct tape around it and it will keep it from kinking so bad. Use the wide. They've got 3 different sizes. Use the wide ones. The connector in here is that part right there. I have this cut. It's that section right here. This goes into here. This goes into here. And they're banded together. And so I have really saved a lot of my, actually that's a size up. That goes a size up. That's here. That goes from here to here. And when I cut these, I don't cut them back here. I cut them right at that first divot. And that way I've only got maybe 3 or 4, maybe 3 millimeter thickness of the plastic taking up my water flow space. So it really opens up my water flow, and that way everything attaches. I lose very little GPH, gallons per hour, and it works really well. And like I said, it helps reduce the weight, and it allows me to section my stuff, allows easier packing, easier rolling. It's just, I love them. So that's it on hoses. Let's get on to mats. How to repair your mats, things like that, how to set them up. On mats, Goldhog.com. Doc has a very good video in the Goldhog.com video section, and he shows how they do their mats. It applies for any of them that you buy. I highly suggest people go watch it. So let's move on to the mats now, shall we?